In past videos, I've looked at shadow men, men in black, and black-eyed kids. Now it's time for another strange humanoid known as the Grinning Man. This joker-esk entity is said to be seen at the location of UFO sightings and leaves those that he meets shaken and scared. So let's take a look at this mysterious interloper and ask, who is the Grinning Man? Welcome to If, videos on history and mystery. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss a video again. This man that somewhat resembles the iconic Batman villain, the Joker, is often reported as appearing shortly after a UFO sighting. The mysterious Grinning Man is said to materialize and terrorize those that have recently witnessed extraterrestrial activity. Going back to the 1960s, and those that have witnessed strange aerial phenomena also claim to have received a visit from a spooky figure of a man that is said to be unnaturally tall, strangely dressed, wearing a long shiny green metallic jacket, having a bald head and a very eerie look. The most striking feature, however, comes in the form of a broad, toothy grin. This ear-to-ear smile earning him the name the Grinning Man. The sightings have continued until today, but this man was first reported in the John Keel book Strange Creatures from Time and Space, published back in the 1970s. This book takes a whole chapter to lay out and talk about the Grinning Man and the first recorded sighting from 1966. This original incident took place in New Jersey. Two boys were walking down a street on a late October evening. The two youths were stunned when they spotted a spookily strange tall man standing in some bushes under a turnpike. Keel writes, "Jimmy nudged me and said, 'Who's that guy standing behind you?' I looked around and there he was, behind that fence, just standing there. He pivoted around and looked right at us, and then he grinned a big old grin. The man was over 6 feet tall," they agreed, and was dressed in a sparkling green coverall costume that shimmered and seemed to reflect the streetlights. There was a wide black belt around his waist. He had a very dark complexion and little round eyes, real beady and set far apart. They could not remember seeing any hair, ears or nose on this figure, nor did they notice his hands. This story is somewhat corroborated by a second spotting of the mystery man later the same night, just a few kilometers away. Keel also notes that the man appeared after many people in the area witnessed a strange shimmering white UFO darting around the night sky. These people included police officers and other professionals, with most seeing the odd aerial craft flying over the local reservoir. Jumping forward in time 2-3 weeks after the initial incident, one of the most dramatic encounters with the Grinning Man took place. Keen documents the report provided by a 50-year-old man who was selling sewing machine parts in the New Jersey area. This man said that how on the 2nd of November he had a bizarre run-in with a smiling ghoul. He described the man as not appearing that alien, with descriptions saying he looked perfectly natural and normal as just about any human being. The face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot and had a good tan. His hair was combed straight back and was a dark brown, and he seemed to have a good thick head of hair. His eyebrows, his face and his features were all very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different than any other man that we'd meet on the street. He looked to be approximately 35 to 40 years old. He was a very nice looking man and very neat. Neither was he unusually tall or large. I would say he was close to 6 feet tall, and he would weigh around 180 or 185 pounds. Neither was he dressed in any unusual manner outside of the glossiness of the fabric. He had a top coat on and it was zipped down the front. The top two buttons, like my coat here, were opened, and this outfit was a shiny material. It was a glossy outfit, like it was metallic. I suppose that's what you would call it, and his shirt was a little bit darker than his jacket, and below his coat he had on trousers of the same kind of cloth material. I believe the trousers were just a shade lighter than his coat. I would say that it wasn't a uniform. It didn't have that cut of a uniform. It was more like a suit you'd wear in town. The strange experience had the man so spooked and concerned. The next day he went on WTAP television in Ohio to share his story and warn others. He said, "I am a salesman and I drive a truck, and last night shortly after 7 o'clock I was coming from Marietta, Ohio, coming down Interstate 77, and just before I came to the intersection of Route 47, there was a car. It passed me, overtaking me from behind, and following closely behind this car was this unidentified flying object. And as the car behind me passed me, this object was also following close behind it and swerved directly in front of my truck, turning crosswise. And when it turned crosswise, it slowed down. It started slowing down, not abruptly or too fast, but gave me plenty of time to step on my brakes and slow down with it. But it forced me to come to a complete stop. As soon as I had stopped, there was a door opened in the side of this vehicle, and this man stepped out and came directly to me, came to the truck. He walked to the right hand side of the truck and he told me to roll down the window. He asked me to roll down the window on the right hand side of my truck, and I'd done what he asked. And this man stood there and he first asked me what I was called, and I knew he meant my name, and I told him my name. And then he asked me, he said, "Why are you frightened?" He said, "Don't be frightened. We wish you no harm. We mean you no harm. We wish you only happiness." And I told him my name, and when I told him my name, he said he was called Cold. That was the name that he was called by. The witness claims that this conversation was carried out telepathically and was mainly just small talk. When the chat came to a close, Cold got back into his vehicle, an odd craft in the shape of an old kerosene lamp. He took off into the night, leaving the man shocked and confused. The other sightings of the Grinning Man over the years after 1966 have been vague. These reports do often share one or two things in common with the original story, but there are also some crucial differences. One of these mentions a tall, bold, scary grinning man wearing a shiny green jacket. Another describes a strange, thin, tall man wearing a checkered shirt, which a woman saw one night. This woman waking from her sleep to see the strange man at the foot of her bed watching her nap. Another sighting could be part of a much bigger story. The Mothman. The Mothman is a cryptid which was reported in Point Pleasant before a major bridge collapsed, killing many. Before this collapse occurred, there were a number of strange events. It's a long story that has been covered by many, so I won't go too deep in this video. One of these odd events was the sighting of UFOs in the area. These were then followed by reports of a giant, broad-shouldered, grinning man with an unruly shock of silver hair. Stories continue to come in over the following months and years, and often feature a strange grinning man, sometimes as a prowler or a peeping Tom, but he always seems to pop up where he shouldn't be. It also strikes me that this grinning man shares many of the same attributes as the Slender Man, with the exception of the massive pearly grin. Looking through the history of these bizarre tales, there is little hard proof beyond what is written in the pages of John Keel's book. This does not mean that the stories are untrue, but it does mean that maybe a skeptical eye should be cast over these reports. Maybe we can find evidence in the reported UFO sightings that are often said to occur at around the same time as the grinning men are seen. There aren't any reports of UFOs found in local New Jersey newspapers from the time of the sighting, so this would not seem to support the story, and that at least that part of the story is inaccurate. But even if the tall, creepy, grinning man that Keel says was reported by two boys was seen, exactly as the story which was penned in Keel's book, and the tale told by the travelling salesman, it would seem that Cold, or the grinning man, is courteous and friendly. So if you're concerned about a frightening encounter with a tall, maniacally smiling character, you're probably safe. at least for now. Had you heard of this man? Have you seen the Grinning Man? If so, let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do here on the channel, hit that red button, like and share. You can catch the latest by searching We Are If. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.